working on, as I said that I would. So I'm back for another part. This is part 9 of healing from divorce. And so tonight we're talking about forgiveness. This is usually a difficult topic, just because it's just so hard to think about forgiveness when it comes to something or someone that has hurt you. But this is what I do, and so I'm looking forward to talking to you guys tonight. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. That's just my dog trying to break in the door. Um, so I'm gonna read to you from my book on Mother, um, and I'm just going to read the part about forgiveness because this is what applies tonight, and it's the whole framework that I'm using to heal from divorce. And so um, I just want to read it to you because it's going to apply. So it says, this is from part 2, which is about healing. The second part of healing is forgiveness. The first part is grief, and we talked about that already. Every part of forgiveness is for you. That includes the part where you choose whether or not to forgive others, and the harder part where you forgive yourself. Forgiveness is a part of healing that provides the closure needed to move you from pain to your purpose. And I said it provides the closure needed because of a lot of the time we are looking for closure outside of ourselves, and that's also another live that I did when I was talking about healing from divorce a few weeks back, and I talked about providing the closure for yourself. So forgiveness for yourself is really important. And so let's start with that because that's the type of forgiveness that we don't talk about a lot. I think we are more familiar with thinking about forgiveness in terms of other people and what we should do. But when it comes to pain, sometimes we do play a role in what has happened, and especially when a marriage fails, it's never just one-sided. Now, I'm before y'all attack me, I'm not saying that it can't be, like infidelity, deception, things like that that can cause a marriage to fail. I'm just saying I think that sometimes within ourselves we do notice things, and whether we want to address them or not is up to us. And so what I mean is taking accountability. That's the best way I can describe it. We need to take some accountability for our role in what happens in our lives. We can't just sit there and say like we're completely the victim, and this and that and the other was done because we were present in the marriage, hopefully. And so, that being the victim might apply to something else, but I think when it comes to a marriage, it's safe to say that there are two people. And so no matter how you show up, no matter what goes on, you have to take some accountability for what happened. Now, when I say accountability, I don't mean blame yourself for your marriage failing, unless, of course, you know some things that you did and you feel like you're at fault. I'm talking about when you're blindsided by divorce, and when perhaps your spouse has stepped to you and said they don't want to be married or whatever the case, and you're surprised. So I'm not saying take accountability in a sense of blaming yourself. I'm saying take accountability for your behavior. And what I mean is sometimes, like there could have been some red flags, and for whatever reason, we like pushed it away or tried to pretend like we didn't see it, and we didn't really address it head on. That could have happened to you. I know that certainly happened sometime in my marriage, and it doesn't mean that you were waiting for it to build up. It's just that sometimes we're just doing the best that we can, trying to figure out how to make these relationships work. And sometimes things do, like, we do kind of let things slide. And so I'm talking about just looking at your behavior. And another thing could be like not just like red flags, but like if you had an opportunity to change something, or even if it was an opportunity to listen, you kind of just need to sit there and think about, like, what ways could I have done this differently. Guys, hold on one second. Sorry about that. My dog she really wants to be in the live with us. Anyway, Luna's a trip. So I was talking about accountability and not necessarily blaming yourself, but do recognize the times when things could have gone differently. And that is something that you can work on in therapy, because you have to ask yourself, like, why did I see the red flags and maybe I didn't say anything? Why did I allow certain treatment to happen to me? Like, when I knew it was wrong, and when I knew this was probably not a good idea to give them a second chance, or to, let them explain something, and I knew they were lying to me. Why did I sit there and allow it? Did it have to do with my self-worth? Like, what did it have to do with? And so that's something I would say, look at unpacking it in therapy. However, for tonight, we're just going to talk about the fact that you can just address those things, when you are ready to. But forgiveness for self is key, because it can help you get that closure that you need. Um, and it's okay to be aware of the places where you fell down, the places where you didn't protect yourself like you needed to, the places, the times when you didn't speak up when you probably should have. It's okay to be aware of that now, even though the marriage it has failed, and you're headed to divorce, or you are divorced. It's okay to be aware of that now, because this is an opportunity for growth. Right? This is not behavior that you want to keep repeating. And I'm not just talking about romantically, I mean, like in any relationship. You don't want to ever sit there and not be an advocate for yourself when you need to speak up. You don't want to sit there and allow people to, like, play in your face and, like, treat you any kind of way. And so this is an opportunity for growth. So never be ashamed of the places where things didn't work out. We have to own it, take that accountability, and then deal with ourselves, with grace. So give yourself that out, because you did the best that you could. You did the best that you could at the time. And even if you knew you were making a bad decision, or something your gut was telling you, this, you probably shouldn't do that. You were trying to protect your marriage. You were trying to stay together. And so you can give yourself grace for that. But now that you're on the other side of it, and you can look back and see some times when maybe things should have gone differently, or you should have been more outspoken, it is okay to take ownership of that. And it is okay to let that go. Because if it were somebody else that you loved, you would let it go. If it was somebody else that, like a sibling, or somebody that you really like, you have a lot of affection for them, that you're, no matter what it is, pretty much you're always going to forgive them, you would. So you got to treat yourself the same way. And a lot of times we won't do that, because it's us, and we're so hard on ourselves. But nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. We're all doing this life thing here for the first time and trying to figure it out. So give yourself that grace. Okay. And the next part of forgiveness. Now this is challenging when you're going through a divorce, forgiving the other person. So the way I like to address forgiveness for other people when they have hurt us is to look at it as a form of release. So rather than thinking of forgiveness like, you mean tell me this person is going to, treat me like this, not even, work on us all the time, what we thought we meant to each other, none of that is showing up right now. They're acting like they don't know me, and you think, after they've trampled on my heart, I'm going to forgive them. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they get a pass. I'm not saying that, you should tell them everything's okay that they did. In this sense, it is a form of release, because you cannot go back in the past and redo things. So no matter how they got over on you, no matter how they treated you, no matter what you thought you meant to them or you meant to each other, that's not the case. And now you're headed to divorce. And so it is best to accept that, is what I'm saying, and realize that you have a couple of options. You can sit in it and not move, or you can begin to work on yourself, heal, release it, and go forward. And one of the big ways that you're releasing that pain, and you're starting to get through that part of forgiveness with your ex, is because you will no longer be calling for revenge. And it takes time to get there. It's not an automatic thing. Like, yes, you might be praying for their downfall. Yeah, you might be wishing all kinds of stuff on them. And it's sometimes hard to stop yourself from thinking it, but please don't act on revenge. Okay. So I'm going to say it this way. I am a Christian. I believe in God, and God says vengeance is mine. And I leave it at that, because if anything's going to happen to them, you don't want to be involved in it. And God can fix it better than you could ever imagine. And so I just let God handle it. And it's hard, y'all. I'm not even going to lie. And forgiveness or release when it comes to the person that hurt you, when it comes to your ex, it might be very difficult. It could take a long time. I don't think you can put a time limit on it. But give yourself, like whatever space you need to begin to heal, to begin to try to get there. Because if you don't get there, you're going to stay stagnant. You're going to be stuck. And so I'm just looking at my notes down here to make sure I'm not missing anything I want to tell y'all. Um, yeah, so the other big part of releasing this event, this marriage failure that happened that you can't fix now, right? The other big part of that is if you truly want to grow, if you truly want to live your life, no matter whether that means you find somebody new and you marry again, or you just date and the people say they having their whole season, whatever it is, no matter what it is that you do next, if you want to be able to have new experiences, you're going to have to purge those feelings. You're going to have to begin to let it go. You can't like be bitter and think that you're going to attract all this good stuff to you, because that's not how that works. So you have to look at it in a sense of, it's in your best interest to begin to let go of what happened. And again, I'm not telling you have to let this person off the hook and you have to go to them and talk to them. And I'm not telling you need to let them back in your life, even though y'all are divorced. I'm not saying you need to be friends. Because here's the thing about forgiveness that people sometimes confuse. They do think that forgiveness means that you have to reconcile, and that's not what it means. And then a lot of times people confuse forgiveness with trust. So see, sometimes when people do things, and if we're just gonna be keep talking about, keep it real and talking about divorce, that trust is gone. Like that is it's not coming back, which is the reason why you're probably headed where you are. It's gone. And so forgiving someone and trusting them again are two different things. There are two different things, and sometimes people get them confused. They get it mixed up. And so I want to be clear when I say it's all right to release somebody and to release an event, so that you're not constantly replaying it and having those thoughts in your head. And, every time you think about the pain, your stomach starts hurting and all your blood pressure goes up. All these things, because it can end up making you very sick. Yes, unforgiveness can make you sick. And so in this book that I was reading, Unmothered, that I wrote a couple years ago, I referenced an article from Johns Hopkins University about unforgiveness and some of the things that can happen to you. So it is in your best interest to do whatever you can to begin to remove those painful memories, to try to just move your way through it. And it's not going to happen instantly. You need to give yourself the time. And so that's basically it. It's two parts to forgiveness, but both parts are for you. Both parts are for you. Forgiveness, I see it as like the last step before you get into renewal, which is what we're going to be talking about next week. But it is the last step because it is one of the hardest steps, and it takes so much time to get here. But when you get here and you begin to love on yourself and you begin to see yourself as this beautiful person that you are, with so much potential to be even better, and then you can look at the ex with compassion. If you can't forgive him yet, and this is what my therapist told me, look at him with compassion, and you just have to feel sorry for him and say, it's a shame that you treat people this way, or it's a shame that this is how you act. It's a shame that you don't know better. Whatever it takes so that you can step away from the ledge of revenge and of like staying stuck. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to remind you of the things I said here, and then I'm going to get out of your hair for tonight. All right. So when it comes to forgiveness and release, understand that it is going to still hurt. The pain is going to be there. You're just going to take time to work through it. You will no longer be praying for your ex's downfall and, for them literally to not prosper. That's when you're moving through it. Also remember, forgiving doesn't mean that you're weak. it takes a lot of strength to release something and to be cordial to somebody. I'm not saying be friends, but be cordial to somebody that has hurt you and that has basically turned your life upside down. It takes a lot of strength to do that, and everybody can't do that. So never look at yourself as weak when it comes to forgiveness. Don't start thinking that you're going to forget what happened. Forgetting what happened is like erasing your brain. And so maybe there are some aspects of your marriage, some of the worst parts you don't want to think about, you don't want to talk about, and they will, they won't come to mind. But as a whole, you're not going to forget the parts that hurt you. And so you don't have to expect yourself to, like people say, forgive and forget. That's not a real thing. Not in cases where it's deep hurt like this. So just understand that you're just human and your brain is doing what it's supposed to do. But you have to work harder just to make sure you don't let the thoughts cause you to feel bad, to, like I said, make your stomach hurt, make your head hurt, get you upset, make you act out, make you crash out, that kind of stuff. Um, Understand that when you forgive doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't even mean that you should be expecting an apology from someone else. It doesn't mean that y'all are going to have any kind of relationship. It doesn't mean you need to talk to them and say, hey, I forgave you. You just need to know in yourself that you're doing something for you, and that's the closure that you need. Um, Understand that forgiveness is not trust. So when you forgive does not mean that trust has come back in any form or fashion. And understand that unforgiveness can cause physiological changes in your body that are not good for you. Can cause your blood pressure to fluctuate, can make you more susceptible to getting sick. And like I said, you can look up that article from Johns Hopkins University that I referenced in my book if you want to learn more. And I'm sure there are probably other articles about unforgiveness and how it affects the body. And then the last thing to remember is to take your time. Don't rush it. Sometimes you can forgive easier than you think you can, and then sometimes it's just that thing sticks with you, and you just have to be working on it. Be aware that it's something that you have to work on. Be intentional about what you need to do, whether you're journaling it out and getting the nasty thoughts out of your head and putting them on paper and then burning the paper, whatever it is you need to do, whether you're telling your therapist about it or you're talking to someone that'll just listen and let you vent. Take your time, because moving through forgiveness is so powerful. It's just like it opens the door to those new opportunities. And so you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to stay stuck. You want to move through it, but you also don't want to move too fast to where you're fooling yourself and you're not really healing. Okay? All right. Well, that's what I have for you tonight. And I'm looking forward to talking to you next week. Next week might be the last part of Healing from Divorce that I do, because that's the renewal phase of it. But I'm going to look at my schedule, and I'm also going to look at the content, because I tend to talk about renewal in 3 parts. I'm going to see if it makes sense to cover it all in one part next week. I think I can do that. And renewal is my favorite part for obvious reasons, because it moves you from like the sad and the dreary into what's next, into the good stuff. And so I cannot wait to talk to you guys, and I hope that you'll join me next week.